Please be seated. Last time I was here, I think it was about 2018. I'm the Reverend Teresa Joaquin. I'm the priest, missioner, and founder of the Church at Crossroads. First of all, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. I want to give you a little background because though we have a deep relationship together, I'm aware that maybe not everybody knows the context of the ministry I'm involved with. I'm a church planter. And this actually happened quite by surprise. I want to go all the way back to 2008. I was a lay person, and the congregation I was attending used to go to Crossroads of Michigan, a social service agency in Detroit on West Grand Boulevard, down from Henry Ford Hospital, Motown Museum, and where they have been serving people in different location, but now they're in West Grand, but for since 1971. So it was started by the Cathedral Church of St. Paul, our cathedral, and the idea was, 1971. We were still coming through that era of civil rights, and people were really hurting. The uprisings had taken place. They said, "What should we do? We need to respond." And Crossroads said, we can help people to just partner with them and see what they might need for their next step in life. And so they really developed a specialty in securing IDs for people, which is a big deal. They are open Monday through Friday, where they see people to go through, what's going on in your life. They can provide some emergency food, clothing, and things, advocacy. And I thought, well, I'd like to find out what that's like. I want to know the stories of people's lives that I see when I drive in and out of Detroit about as quickly as I could growing up or being an adult. Quite honestly, I hate to admit that, being a suburbanite. But it started to get to me, like, what's going on with people's lives on the street corners? And maybe I could talk with somebody and just I wanted to know their stories. And so I walked in with my church group to do this once a week. And the first thing I saw when I was there was a chapel inside. I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if people would like to pray before they have their times with their counselors. And I got permission to be able to do that. And so I just would hold morning devotions before doing the counseling bit. And it was a little hard at first, but then it seemed like everybody in the room was walking in to pray. And as we prayed together and talked together, I just was blown away. I couldn't believe the faith that was present, that just walked in those doors every day. And not long after, I felt this little sentence come to me, which was, well, why isn't there an Episcopal congregation right there? And then 2016, I'd finished seminary, and that whole thought just did not leave me. God will keep at you. God is calling you. And I went to Bishop Gibbs and the people at Crossroads and secured permissions to actually try this out. So I've been working on planting a congregation inside and in the neighborhood of Crossroads of Michigan. And we're called the Church at Crossroads. And many of you have joined me with this. Raymond Davis, Steve Ilmer, Connie Ilmer, and many of you have come for lunch and things like that. And I want to talk about that and have provided monetary support as well. So thank you. Thank you. And I think together we're trying to figure this thing out. And that's really what I want to talk about today is where are we in the world, in the church, in the culture? What is our call at this time as Christians? And being on sort of the edge of that, I feel as a church planter, I just want to share some of my insights and thoughts. And of course, I'd love to hear yours. But I was intrigued by the scriptures today out of Deuteronomy, where God is showing Moses the promised land. You know, this land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is yours and for all your progeny. And finally, Moses wants to enter the promised land, but he's prevented from doing that. But God takes him to the mountain and shows him, this is it. This is the land. And I've especially given the current events that are so heartbreaking today in the Middle East. I want to break open this idea of the promised land. It's because as I've been thinking about it, I'm wondering, isn't the promised land more than geography? Maybe the promised land is the love that I see in my neighbor, both near and far, and that my neighbor sees in me. The promised land is God's place of milk and honey, all those good things, all the gifts that God has given us. And we need to see them in our neighbor. And I wonder if that would help our conflict in the world. One of the books that Sharon, thank you for mentioned, I picked up at Diocesan Convention last week. If any of you were there, they had a Lutheran pastor who was promoting going to the Holy Land, but he had some really good materials. And one of them was a book, The Other Side of the Wall, of experience of a Muslim, ELCA Lutheran pastor that lives there looking at life in as a Muslim person or a Palestinian in the Holy Land. I just cracked it last night and I thought there's a lot of theology there and things. So that's one of the books I wanted to share with you. And so this idea of the promised land, that brings me to something I had come across several years ago and shared with our leadership team. And that's the other book. And it's called Having Nothing, Possessing Everything. Having nothing, possessing everything. And you've heard St. Paul talk about that. And this book is the story of a gentrified Methodist parish in Indianapolis and what that Lutheran pastor did to help make connections in the community and totally flipped the kind of the social services that the church is used to doing, giving out food, um, clothing, this kind of thing. What he learned was that it's within the community that people have gifts and people want to be helping themselves and helping others. And how could the church move from being this sort of provider of resources to being a connector of people? And what he says is based on something called asset-based community development. But the bigger thing is, instead of looking at what does somebody need, what are the gifts that somebody has? And where I am, I would say that it's very easy to overlook gifts. People have deep poverty where I am, and many people have lived in systems of racial injustice and low income, zero income in some cases. And it's very easy to overlook the person's humanity, the person's gifts. And this book, this discipline of asset-based community development has really been a gift for me. And I'm rereading the book. I just returned from a church planter conference in LA. We were in Koreatown, and our keynote speaker was somebody from that community. And so I lift that book to you too. But I want to just give an example of, or share some more thoughts about that. So you all come, I think 8 of you came for free summer lunch this past year. You can raise your hands if you were part of that. And yes, thank you. And I was thinking when you came, we had one of the highest numbers of lunches that were served. I want to say it was like 175 or something like this. I mean, we really, the need is great. The need exploded from last year to this year. And there's probably a lot of social reasons, tax reasons, and all kinds of benefit reasons, government sponsored benefits. I know were reduced, different things like that. But like, I think we were just blown away. Now you all were amazing and made it happen. Like you multiplied loaves, and I don't know how you did all that. Thank you. And and I wonder of those people who received a sandwich or received some food. We must have chefs among them. There must be people among them who are the healers, the ones who are the leaders, who would love to be the ones on the other side of the counter because everybody wants to give. What would it mean if we found out their stories, found out what they long for, what they want to do, and then we kind of work together? Maybe there's a community foundation money that would help compensate people for being able to provide that lunch in the summertime. How can the church partner and walk with our fellow neighbors so that we're all we're all giving. We're all giving and receiving because it's a blessing with one another. It's a different mindset. And I see it in many of the families who are part of our community. And so I'll just name a couple stories. Rabina is the mom. I met her in 2017, I think, and she was pregnant and she was going to Crossroads because they give away diapers for people who have need for young children. And she's so friendly. And I said hello, hello, and all that. And I learned that she was in training to be a doula for the Black Mothers Breastfeeding Association. And we exchanged numbers and we just kind of kept, texts here and there. Well, when COVID hit in 2020, and our leadership team, particularly Connie, Stephen, Raymond will tell you, we looked at each other and said, what are we going to do now? And so we tried this Zoom church school. So I sent Robina the message. I said, would you pass this to your community? Let them know we're going to be doing this. And she goes, well, can my kids come? Well, of course. So they started attending, and then she told her sister, and they told friends and cousins and all this. And well, we saw Rabina Wednesday night with her child, one of her children, at our in-person church nights. And Rabina is now training the doulas. She's a trainer. And just this person that is encourages and networks and can lift you off the ground just by her smile. These are the gifts. These are the gifts. We have a mom, her name is Fazje. She has 4 children, 7 and under. And she has come to Crossroads for diapers also. And as we got to know her, I found out that she works for the Detroit Parent Network. And the Detroit Parent Network helps parents who need childcare so they can work. And it'll be like a sliding scale. She's a connector. She can help connect the resources and the community for people in need. And then as I talked with her, I found out a little bit more. And I learned that Fazje wants to be a farmer. And I'm just blown away by this. And she has a garden on her balcony, in her apartment, a balcony. And she has come to our church school night now with her kids. And we want to continue this process. We want to do more. And then there's BJ, and he's 7 years old. He's Rabina's nephew. And he's constantly leading grace for us before we eat. I mean, he's got these gifts. He may be a preacher one day, so we'll see. They're just all over. And so to be able to see differently, to be able to, um, be with people where they are, hear their stories, love them, name, bless, and connect. A different mindset than what are your needs and let me fill them. So we're taking this journey. I want to hear your thoughts. There's more to go. I think the big thing I will say at that church planting conference, there were redevelopers too. Because I think in the church, we're all looking at where are we in the church and what does it mean to, reach out today? So much has changed. So we're all doing this together, whether we're a brand new church or we're 100 years old. And I think that promised land in the eyes of one another is a great image. And I hold that before you. There's a song, and I think we all know it. It's called Let There Be Peace on Earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with you. Let it begin with me. Amen.